Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources in finance and health. But more importantly, this podcast is all about athletes transitioning out of sport. It's such a major issue today between financial literacy and mental health. And we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their transition out of sport ultimately to successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have Joey Cioffi. How you doing, Joey?
What's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So Joey was a football player. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, so I got this wrong before. I'll get it right now because we talked about it. But Joey played football at Monmouth University, which back in my day was Monmouth College. So he played 4 years there at Monmouth University. And then when he was done playing football, he got into finance. Ultimately, he worked for Merrill Lynch, but he had that drive, that entrepreneurial drive in him. So his family had a very successful deli. So he went into the deli business, but he wanted to take it a step further. And he ultimately started and is the founder and CEO of Salad House, which I'm really excited to hear more about. My mouth was watering when I was hearing about it, and we'll talk more about it later. So, Joey, talk about playing sports growing up. How did it shape you leading up into college?
I'll tell you what, when I first started playing sports, I was a little chubby, and I was a byproduct of my mother, Italian mother, right off the boat. My parents, I'm a proud son of a immigrant Italian parents coming off the boat, literal boat, 11 days at sea in 1957. My mother would always, a typical Italian mother, like always feeding me, always like literally after school, I'd have a half a chicken parm sandwich with some Coke and some Doritos, and I'll be watching Different Strokes or Alvin and the Chipmunks like after school every day. It was like that was just a meal right after school, a little snack, and then having dinner, pasta. So I was a little chubby kid that was athletic, but at the same time was a little chubby, and so now sports. I start with that just because I was successful, but like there was like a limit. Like you're embarrassed. You got kids that are thin, running like the wind, and I attribute the beginning of the athletic journey really started when I was in eighth grade. And I always refer to this one coach, this basketball coach that I had. His name was, we called him Whiskey, Tom Wisniewski. And he was the Bobby Knight of Springfield, where I lived in Springfield, New Jersey, like the Bobby Knight of like youth basketball, throwing chairs, really a lunatic, very a tough, hard-nosed coach. And I'll tell you, he whipped my ass into shape in such a way because he saw something in me, and he was just like, he goes, my brother was a track star, played football. I was 14 years older than me. And he's like, your brother's a track star. He goes, you're last in suicide. He goes, you gotta put yourself in, like, oh. He would use some choice words for, that he'd probably get canceled really quickly. uh, Nowadays, but he pushed me, and by the end of the season, I was second in suicides, and it kind of it toughened me up, and I didn't want to let my teammates down, and he saw that in me, and it kind of that's what catapulted me into my athletic career, so to speak. Then I had a successful high school career. And as I grew, learning from different coaches and having so many coaches that taught you different ways and different, like, and I would always see the different methods of coaching, the way people would, some would relate to some kids, some would relate to others. I would absorb more from certain type of coaches, but that was early on. That was something I was getting early on with sports, and then at high school. Learned how to be a true teammate because that's when it kind of got serious. When you had, as a three-sport athlete playing baseball, football, and basketball, and and that was the beginning, and really understanding how teamwork is so important.
Yeah, that's so critical, teamwork. And I mean, that's something that we talk about all the time, and just what makes athletes special, especially when you start looking at in the future, when people want to hire athletes and all that, just that whole teamwork is definitely a big part of it. So let's talk about, so now you're at school. And again, we talk about this podcast being about transition out of sports. Was there any education at school that kind of prepared athletes? And I'm not just talking about like a 1-day workshop, but like prepared athletes for life after sports.
No, if you don't mind, I want to rewind just up leading up into that point, just because I find
Sure.
it I find it very important, and I want to share this with my my high school. I was in a, a smaller school, group two, and I was somewhat undersized to potentially go, Division one double A. So I was always told that I was too small. There's no way, you have aspirations of playing at Villanova, at Monmouth, at some of these other schools, Cornell. Like there were some other one double A schools that's kind of where I wanted to go. And I was constantly doubted. A lot of people were just like, again, like, you're only 6'1", tight ends, and your position are 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds. And that doubt that early on kind of drove me, sort of like Salad House, sort of like a lot of different things. And I'm saying this because Salad House was sort of that too, where it was like, oh God, you're starting a place. How are you going to start a place? And you can't leave the place. There's no way you could open up a store. I come from a mom and pop's Italian deli where it's like my brother and I are the only ones that have the keys. My father too, but it's like, how could you leave a place? How could you make a systematic place and not be there? And I wanted to prove people that you can do that. I think sports helped with that, with improving whiskey. I can be run a lot faster than the last one, and I can contribute to a championship run that we had in eighth grade. Um, that's, so to rewind to that, I just wanted to share, like
Sure.
this now. And then I was able to, get recruited at Monmouth University, start for 2 years. And that was something that I'm really proud of because, again, I was doubted to play at that level.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I mean, I kind of did that with running. I was a runner in high school and college, and that was the same kind of thing. I was like, not the fastest one distance runner, but just kind of driven because same kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, you're okay. The doubtful thing that definitely played in, but and I think that funnels into in the future. So when these athletes when you were done playing football, there's that transition out of sports. Some people are fortunate enough to play at the professional level. And what we're seeing today from an education perspective is that I think a lot of schools, maybe more so now they're doing it than definitely more so than when I was playing, maybe a little bit more when you were playing. What was, do you see anything, was there movement on that education about the transition out of sport or even what you know of today that they're doing there?
There wasn't much then, but there is now. Uh, when I was at school, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was pretty much, it was like football while you're, what I mean, all year long,
Sure.
and obviously academics and social, depending on the year you're talking. If it was my freshman year, it was probably social first. I had a good time. I'd be honest with you, a lot of my teammates, unless you were self-driven, when it came to like, getting an internship or doing stuff, which I did, but at the same time, we were never really kind of told, oh, you should prepare yourself for this because you're not going to the NFL. I mean, like you're at a, one double A school, you're not going to be playing professional football. So there really wasn't much, but now, especially Monmouth University, I go back every once in a while and speak with the players, the messaging, from embracing those 4 years, embracing that time that you have there, is how quick it goes. Like having a little regret, like I just mentioned, like freshman, sophomore year, like maybe I should have put a little bit more effort in the gym and paid attention more to football. So I have that messaging, but I also have the messaging of understanding that life after football is tough. And, you kind of have to, find where navigate through these waters, especially now where, obviously it's definitely difficult with the advent of AI. And I'm sure there's people don't know which way they're going to go. But ultimately, football players and athletes in general are special human beings because, to put that kind of effort, to be a part of a team, you know, especially at a collegiate level, you're special. You are special. You are without question. You are blessed with an ability, and you have the drive to be able to work, be able to pass your classes, go to workouts, go to 5 a.m. workouts, have spring ball, like not be able to do with like what other students are able to do. And so, you are special, and I think that transitions to leaders in the world. Now, Monmouth does have like entrepreneurial things where they have like uh, one time we had a panel of different categories of businesses. We had somebody that was in education, somebody who was in law enforcement, somebody who was an entrepreneur. There was different categories, and we all spoke to the players. We broke off into little breakout rooms where we were able to talk a little bit more intimately with the players and having a little one-on-one time. Actually, one of the players, has hit me up to have been mentoring one of them since that meeting. So now I believe that they're doing a lot more. I know at Monmouth University and Rutgers, I'm close with, but so.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, you kind of tapped into the whole alumni engagement, and that's something I think is so important. And it sounds like, you've reached back out, and I think, it's a two-way street. I think schools, sometimes schools don't take advantage of that. I think there's a lot of athletes that would want to come back, and the schools just don't reach out. But, it sounds great what you're talking about, and just the whole idea of, you and some of your other fellow athletes going back and talking to the players, which is fantastic. And I mean, I think that's something that's so needed, and alumni definitely bring to the table. So that's something I always talk about is alumni engagement. You kind of answered that question. Was there anything going on back when you were playing, or is it something more newer today that the school reaching out?
I think it's newer today, and especially with football because football was pretty new at Monmouth at the time. The program only started in 1993. I
Okay.
was in 1995, so I was 2 years in. So like, it wasn't the alumni were my seniors. Guys who were already on the team. They weren't in the workforce yet. No, but I mean, but again, I had great coaches, and believe it or not, my coach is still coaching to this day. The original coach at Monmouth University, Kevin Callahan. Shout out to Coach Cal. He is the GOAT. He is the guy that has been there from day one, is still there. I tell him, please don't retire because you make me feel young. That I'm able to say that my college football coach is still at the helm. And they just had they had a great season last year, one of the top one double A scoring teams in the nation. And he's really brought that program to some amazing heights.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, shout out to Coach Callahan. Way to go, Coach. So let's talk about networking, connecting. It's so important today across all facets of life, especially in business. Talk about the importance of doing that, especially while you're still playing.
I'll tell you, you know what? It's unfortunate because a lot of young athletes don't realize it. Because when you're in your early 20s and you're like this alpha dog that is, recruited and swooned and you're the big man on campus. I mean, most, especially, in football, we have a lot of, we walk around campus like, who the heck we are. I think they don't understand that networking outside, obviously networking with your team, that's not really networking. It's just being a good teammate and other sports. Like at Monmouth, I was, connected with the baseball team, really close friend, with, the basketball team. They went to the tournament one year when I was there. We were, had a nice little network, so to speak, but it was just a nice cohesive view. But you never really think about like we had, talk about alumni or talk about different people or even like paying attention to whose father's what and stuff and really putting it in the back of your head, especially if it's an interest of yours, if it's something that you have an interest in. Networking is key, man. And a lot of and I got to be honest with you, it probably should be drilled in their head a little bit more, like over and over again, that like while you're there, whether it's alumni, whether it's your teammates and maybe some successful people that you know. Like I almost one time at Monmouth because it's funny. It's literally just coming up right now as we're talking about this memory. A few of my friends and I was like my friend Brian Hunt, my friend Johnny Pasquale. We were one day we were like talking. We're like, and I'm like, I want to go to all these big houses and in Deal like on the water
Yeah,
and stuff like that. I want to go and knock on their doors and be like, what do you do for a living? Like, what is it
yeah,
that you do? And it's funny because fast forward to now, and there's people on Instagram that are famous that they literally take a little microphone, they go up to people with expensive cars and like, what do you do for a living? And like, I wanted to do that back in the day. Like, I literally wanted to be like, it's almost like cold calling. Now I'm gonna be like, what'd you do
yeah.
to get to this point? How'd you get so successful? But yeah, so I think it's important for young athletes to really understand, especially at these bigger schools. Like my nephew went to Rutgers University. He was a 4-year starter. Anthony Cioffi played professional ball, is now retired from professional ball. Um, I bet that he tapped into some of the alumni because he's like a crowd favorite. He actually had a cheering section called the Chaffee's Goombas. It was like an Italian before Tommy DeVito's thing. And what it's like, but tapping into, I'm sure in hindsight now, he would probably like, oh, I probably should have went around shaking a little bit more people's hands. But it's not too late. He's still young and he still interacts with some of the alumnus and goes to the games and stays relevant, which is very important, especially some of these bigger schools and some of the athletes that are, these blue chip, these, Big Ten athletes, Big 12, like guys like that really should tap into it because there's some really successful people that one hand washes the other. They get like a photo op and get to say, oh, I know Anthony Chaffee. I get that, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I have a network with this person. And
Yeah.
post football, I'm able to talk to this person.
Yeah, and you brought up some great points too. Even just you never know who even like the parents. I mean, I talk about a lot where I was talking to two different college athletes, freshman, sophomore, and they said they never really networked. I mean, they're still young, but wishing that they did more of that. And I think yeah, there's another show where this guy was talking about his son was playing college lacrosse, And he just said that he told his son and all their teammates, like he'd reach out. And I mean, he was doing internships for the teammates and all that. So you're right. I mean, getting to know the parents, because you never know like who those people are, and just have that, that pay it forward mentality of wanting to help out. I think, a lot of people say, how do I, what do I have to offer, especially maybe as a younger athlete? Well, you never know. I mean, maybe there's nothing today that you have to offer. Maybe there's something in the future, or maybe there's somebody else that you can help out that's part of that family.
Yeah, and I love that you said family, because I was just about to say it's a family, like it's a brotherhood, especially, and I obviously football is where I'm going to continue to talk about, but like especially in football where you go to war every week, and these are your brothers. I mean, like I to this day, a lot of my college teammates, even my high school teammates, like I still to this day have such a serious bond where we won't see each other for 5, 10 years. Once we see each other, it's like this. I'm getting chills thinking about it. But like once you see them and you embrace and you give them that hug, been through battles, and we've had some good times, and we've had some moments that we'll never forget, and that's it's really special. So yeah, so like the parents of those people, like it's family. I mean, so
Yeah,
it's like
oh, for sure.
leaning into that is important.
Yeah, definitely. So let's, since you did get to watch, some of the previous episodes, and so the question coming up for you. So a couple questions. So, what advice would you give to freshman Joey if you can go back in time in 10 words or less?
That football is not forever. Football is not forever, and you could do a lot of this stuff socially when you're done with school. Um, so embrace those 4 years, because it's going to go by quick, and you're going to have some regret, like I did.
Yeah. So Joey kind of alluded to it before. He had a fun time as a freshman. Okay, we know that now.
Yeah.
The social life was good, and then he got himself moving along into. So now, if you go back to senior Joey, what advice would you give?
That's senior Joey. I would tell him, really talk to the younger guys. Be a mentor. I was a leader on the team, without question. I was definitely a leader, but at the same time, really, for the betterment of the program, really teach them sort of what we had just alluded to. Talk about how important it is to really take it seriously, because you never know when your number's going to be called up. And I say that because I kind of gave that advice to my nephew. He's like a little brother to me, and I told him, his freshman year, obviously it's a different level going to Rutgers and getting a 4 year scholarship. I said, Aunt, just be ready, play, take and obviously, he's a hard worker, a lot better athlete than I was. Like he ran a 4.3740. The kid's, blessed. But at the same time, he was ready, and there was a moment at Louisville that I actually got to see, which was pretty awesome, where he was next man up because of an injury. And he was a cornerback, and he was a freshman. He was like 175 pounds, soaking wet, 6 foot, and he got in the game, and he was prepared. He was ready. He had a strip sack at Teddy Bridgewater. He like blocked, like it was like a really cool moment, but it was because he was prepared. So I would, as a senior, I'd be more of a leader, and tell the young guys, let's go.
That's great. So now let's talk a little bit. We kind of talk about when it was time to transition out of sport. Now, one thing, and you brought up before, I kind of preface it. I think a lot of athletes that, depending on the sport, and then also depending on the school, like you talk about the size of the school, might go in and know that, hey, when my playing days are over, I'm going into the real world, and they're not so like like you kind of think you even talked about it, just knowing that you might not play in the NFL, so you might have more of a game plan per se. But talk about your transition out of football. You played sports since you were a kid. Really catapulted from eighth grade on. Talk about when that was over and what that meant for you.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Some advice I would give is not to follow what is hot. In other words, when I was, in the late '90s, when I was in college, it was like everybody was on Wall Street and everybody was making money. Didn't matter who you were. It was like boiler room. It was like everybody's like being able to go out to market. We had the internet boom, and things were just skyrocketing. So, a lot of us were like, oh, okay, yeah, let's just transition and go into that. It wasn't my forte. It was not something that I really enjoyed. I'll be honest with you, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the classes that I was in, but I knew that I'm like, oh, that's the quickest way. That's the quickest way for me to have success, because I saw it over and over again. And lo and behold, Wall Street, I got my Series 7, was able to do it. Didn't love it. Didn't love not being my own boss. I didn't love, I had to shave every day. I like to have a little scruff. It was like putting on a suit, going there and having, these guys above me telling me what to do, when I was used to just my brother and my father being my boss. So it was like, it was a little awkward. It was like, I wasn't comfortable with that. But at the same time, it wasn't really something I wanted to do. And like I had said, we had that conversation prior to this where, I left Merrill, my first job, and I was about to take another job, and 9/11 happened, and it was simultaneous with the stock market already going on the downward spiral. So I was supposed to be there 9/11, and it was kind of like an easy way for me to dip out of the business, because I was like, yes, I don't know what's happening, obviously with the stock market, safety, all that stuff. So I went back into the family business, to which I truly love. I truly love, making people smile through their stomachs. I say it over and over again at Salad House, and really, the hospitality end of it, and just, building something and being and creating something.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the athlete DNA skill set. So this is something that a lot of athletes, I think, fail to realize what they have and what they have to offer. So talk about it from the standpoint of being a business owner and looking to potentially hire athletes. Talk a little about that and what they bring to the table.
Well, that was something that was actually over and over again. People would always tell me, once you get out of school, put that you played 4 years of football on your resume. You know what I mean? Aside from everything else, because there's a lot of people out, and this was Wall Street at the time. You're getting a microcosm of life through sport, and you're preparing yourself. And I always tell, I coach youth football, and I talk about it. I talk it over and over again, and that's my messaging to the kids. I always message to them like, listen. This is life. Right now we're in a valley. You know what I mean? If we're on a losing streak or you have an injury or something, I go, you got to fight through. You have the mental toughness to break through it. And I have had some moments in my career where if I didn't play sport, if I didn't have that resilience, if I didn't have that drive, if I didn't have that competitive spirit of wanting to win and wanting to make something successful, proving people wrong, doubters, people that are saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, and saying, screw you, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Because that's the mindset. So I believe the mindset of an athlete, somebody that's be able to, play at a level, higher than high school, playing collegiate level and obviously professional level, is this a special kind of person, and God, we have athletes in the room in our salad house and our team, our corporate team. We have guys that are competing at high rocks and doing stuff like post, being there later. Like my partner Jerry, he's in his 50s and he's participating in these high rocks tour things. I got, Keegan doing, jujitsu. One of my guys, Jared, that are just he's starting his workout. He's transformed his body. He's getting like more like it's like there's a lot of um competitive juices in our team. And I think that that's a part of why we are successful and why we have such a strong foundation. And
Yeah,
it's another guy on my team. He played collegiate baseball, and he's a fiery. We all have that fire, which is pretty important.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I always talk about the whole. I think it doesn't matter what sport. I mean, I think athletes have that same DNA skill set. I mean, obviously it's different per the sport, but just the drive, the teamwork, just everything, persistence that you're talking about there. So let's talk a little bit about. I want to get into franchising and talk a little about franchising. It seems to be a good area where athletes can get involved. And this is something we talked a little bit offline, but talk about that and where you see franchising and how it's something that can be attractive to athletes as a career.
Well, you got a lot of athletes that whether they played pro for a little while or they got out and they're looking to do something. Now, the beauty of franchising is you're basically paying for our mistakes, things that went wrong, things that we honed in on and not perfected but made better to make this. Especially in my case, in our sector, in the restaurant sector, is very difficult. You know, what I mean, majority of restaurants fail. There's a lot of there's so many moving parts, and and everybody, we have a team already assembled, so you're basically joining a team, you're coming aboard a team, but at the same time you're still able to be that leader and to take what you've learned from what coaches that you've learned from, and whether you realize it or not, you've taken bits and pieces of different coaches that you've had as an athlete, and you probably form your own type of leadership. You know what I mean? Some are, I lead with love, and what I mean, like that's my, that's my way. It's like I'll rub you in the back, kick you in the ass at the same time, and you won't realize it. That's how I coach my football team. Um, but with a lot of hugs and the Italian warmth. But that's not everybody's style. But I think that franchising is it's a great way for an athlete to be like, okay, listen, I got this proven system, especially in the health and, for our situation, but the healthier eating that athletes obviously they put fuel in their body. We have the slogan "Fuel your," fueled by Salad House. Working with Jersey Sports Group. It's a group that we're working with right now, where we're fueling young athletes, working with some NIL signed athletes, and just promoting what you put in your body. I mean, because it is gasoline. I mean, this is how you get the engine going. So, but I just think that franchising is a great way for athletes to be able to transition and be able to open up multiples and have maybe use their name, whether it's their college campus, whether it's going back to, like, my nephew Anthony Cioffi's, he's involved in the franchise with in New Brunswick, and so it's like he brought one back to.
That's great. And I mean, it's so important. And I think I do see a lot of, I've talked to a lot of people about franchising and seeing that. And you look across some of the different channels, and it seems like, something that athletes definitely gravitate to. So, one more quick question, and then, I want to hear all about Salad House, but you kind of touched on it briefly. How are you utilizing NIL as far as promoting the brand?
Right now, we're at the beginning stage with our partnership with Jersey Sports Group. We have this we have a game plan laid out, pretty much. At first we were kind of shooting by the hip, and we were like getting some athletes and giving them some gift cards, stuff like that. But now it's a little bit more structured. Tim Banos, one of my partners, is really structuring it out with Eddie Nicastro, Carlton Agadosi, who also played at Rutgers with my nephew. They're a part of Jersey Sports Group, and we have a really strong game plan. But at the same time, we're understanding that you know the young athlete, those are customers that are going to be customers for life too. They really are. And that's sort of the beauty of our brand, is that we are creating customers for life. So we're really, again, we're in the early stages, but I'll definitely I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's great. So my mouth's been watering. I mean, we've been talking about this whole thing, and it's leading up to the whole big story of Salad House. So talk about Salad House and how you started, and what it's all about.
How much time we have? Because I got to be honest
I
with you.
know we can go for hours and hours,
I
but we'll,
know, I know.
we'll do the Reader's Digest version, as they say.
So, I tell you, I am so passionate and so proud of what we've created, again, our team. But it really started, and I always joke about this constantly, that it was, my wife chirping in my ear that there was no chopped salads or healthier options in the suburbs. Whereas in New York City, every street corner has a salad place, chopped salad. So, being in my Italian deli, learning and watching the trends and watching people eat a little bit healthier, and noticing that, it's kind of, people a little bit more educated consumer. Like, people are, leaving, going to McDonald's and Burger King and eating a little healthier. I was at a traffic light in 2010. I was driving in Millburn, New Jersey, coming home. It was like 9:30 at night, and I saw a vacant sign, and I was like, the light bulb went off. Went home, literal pad of paper. I just recently shared some of the original business plan with somebody that's actually held true. I got to be. I'm gonna bust it out because it held true. So what I wanted to create was a salad concept that was an approachable salad concept, that wasn't something that was for only the people that wanted to eat healthy. I wanted something that was for everybody, including a family. Like, I had a young family. I still have young. I mean, they're grown up now, but a young family at the time. And there was always like chaos in the house. Where are we going to go eat? Where are we going to go eat? My wife wants to eat a chopped salad. I, depending on the weekend, if I was going to be on a diet or not, was going to eat healthier or eat a crispy chicken sandwich. So we created a menu that really fed everybody in the family. And then, lo and behold, I noticed that it fed the work family too. So it's like, a group of guys going out for lunch, and it's like one guy wanted a crispy chicken sandwich with some fries, another person wanted to eat healthier. So our offerings were, from the onset, were, more of a wide range, and an approachable way to eat healthier, convenient, fast, delicious, fresh. We get our produce delivered every single day, by our produce vendor. It just, in Millburn in 2011, we opened right from jump. Obviously, there's some growing pains, but it was. I saw that we were filling a void, and there was something special about it. I doubled down, took a business loan, went over to Morristown, New Jersey, not too far away. It was about 25 half hour away. Opened up a second location. At that point, I was like, okay, we have something really special here. But at the same time, I didn't know where, how would I scale this? I got the franchise agreement, but I didn't really know. And in comes my partner, Jerry Ike, who was a customer at Cioffi's, worked at a hedge fund. He came into Cioffi's one day, and he was like, listen, I hurt my shoulder. I can't eat Cioffi's deli anymore. I want to eat at your salad place. Could you tell me where it is? I'm like, yeah, it's on Milburn Avenue. Go check it out. Right away, he called me up. He's like, dude, it is so good. It's so filling. It's so delicious. It's so fresh. He goes, and it's light. He goes, I love it. Da, da, da. And then after a few weeks, he's like, Joey, if you ever want to scale this, because we had mentioned that I wanted to, expand. He's like, I want to be a part of this. So we worked out a deal, and it was a perfect yin and yang, which you also need. Like, it's all about teamwork and not being the person that wants to be, oh, I'm going to do it all. Jerry came aboard and he stripped the thing down. Like he realized him and Tim Benos, he brought Tim Benos on. Jared Bravo was my GM at the time, and now was one of our partners. He was with us, and the four of us literally sat in this little crappy office above the Salad House in Westfield, and we went in there. And they stripped it down, eliminated 30% of the menu, and we made Salad House, scalable, profitable. They took the business side of it. I took the creative and the deliciousness of it. And, we were that perfect meld. But now Salad House, our offerings are, we have every type of cuisine, from Greek to Italian to Mexican flavors. We have such a wonderful spectrum of different flavors, but at the same time, you can eat as healthy as you want to eat. And that's what makes us special. You can have buffalo poppers with our crispy wontons that are like stuffed with buffalo chicken and some cheese, that are a little flash fried, and they're delicious. And you can have that, splurge a little with that. But you could also create your own salad, which is our number one seller. Create your own salad the way you want it through our app, online. We make it easy for you. And it's something where you can eat there multiple times a week, and it's a special brand, approachable brand. You don't have to Google any of our ingredients. We do all the staples well, and we really, we have something really special. We have 20 locations right now. We have another 13 sold, and we're breaking out in New Jersey. We're in New Jersey and New York right now, and we're going to be breaking out soon.
All right. Well, we're
That's the
definitely looking
quickest. That
forward.
was the quickest I could kind of give you, scamper through it.
No, that was good. In fact, I'm waiting for you. We talked about it before, but I'm waiting for the Florida locations. It sounds great. Definitely.
We're in some talks, so hopefully.
Oh, that's good. Well, people, if you're in New Jersey, New York, for sure, you definitely got to check out Salad House. I'm sure there's one that's fairly in your vicinity. So how can people find you?
We're at the Salad House on Instagram, Salad House on Facebook. Our website is thesaladhouse.com. I don't know where our X handle, we're not really not so much on X, but if you just go on our website, you can see a location that's closest to you. And there's also franchising information if anybody has any interest in franchising. We boast some pretty, in our sector, we boast some pretty really nice numbers, and it's a very nice investment, and we're attracting a lot of interest, especially with the health movement that's going on across the country.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, definitely check it out. And you can find us at alumnidirect.com. And the podcast is on our YouTube channel, Athletes, Entrepreneurs, Alumni Journey. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And, it's such an important message. Every week I end the show and just talk about how much of a struggle it can be to transition out of sports. But there's people out there that want to help. And I think I always say if we can help at least one person, obviously we want to help a lot more. But I definitely encourage people to watch and follow and Athletes, Entrepreneurs, Alumni Journey. Make it part of your weekly listen, and just know that athletes, there's people out there that want to help you. So when you're struggling, there are people out there. Joey, this has been great. I really appreciate all your time.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love what you're doing because, like you said, it's very important. It's important to give back, and it's important to share. Listen, we all understand what we've been through. You know what I mean? Training and becoming an athlete, and the real world is pretty damn tough. So.
For sure, for sure. So it's been a true pleasure.